This is Chapter 40 of Following the Equator. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Following the Equator by Mark Twain, Chapter 40, The Government House at Malabar Point, Mansion of Kumar Sri Samatsin Ji Bahadur, The Indian Princess, A Difficult Game, Wardrobe and Jewels, Ceremonials, Decorations when Leaving, The Towers of Silence, A Funeral. Few of us can stand prosperity, another man's, I mean. Pudd'nhead Wilson's New Calendar. The next picture in my mind is Government House, on Malabar Point, with a wide sea view from the windows and broad balconies, abode of His Excellency the Governor of the Bombay Presidency, a residence which is European in everything but the native guards and servants, and is a home and a palace of state harmoniously combined. That was England, the English power, the English civilization, the modern civilization, with the quiet elegancies and quiet colors and quiet tastes and quiet dignity that are the outcome of the modern cultivation. And following it came a picture of the ancient civilization of India, an hour in the mansion of a native prince, Kumar Sri Samatsinji Bahadur of the Palitana state. The young lad, his heir, was with the prince; also the lad's sister, a wee brown sprite, very pretty, very serious, very winning, delicately molded, costumed like the daintiest butterfly, a dear little fairyland princess, gravely willing to be friendly with the strangers, but in the beginning preferring to hold her father's hand until she could take stock of them and determine how far they were to be trusted. She must have been 8 years old, so in the natural Indian order of things she would be a bride in 3 or 4 years from now, and then this free contact with the sun and the air and the other belongings of outdoor nature and comradeship with visiting male folk would end, and she would shut herself up in the zenana for life, like her mother, and by inherited habit of mind would be happy in that seclusion and not look upon it as an irksome restraint and a weary captivity. The game which the prince amuses his leisure with, however, never mind it, I should never be able to describe it intelligibly. I tried to get an idea of it while my wife and daughter visited the princess in the zenana, a lady of charming graces and a fluent speaker of English, but I did not make it out. It is a complicated game, and I believe it is said that nobody can learn to play it well but an Indian, and I was not able to learn how to wind a turban. It seemed a simple art and easy, but that was a deception. It is a piece of thin, delicate stuff a foot wide or more, and 40 or 50 feet long, and the exhibitor of the art takes one end of it in his 2 hands and winds it in and out intricately about his head, twisting it as he goes, and in a minute or 2 the thing is finished, and is neat and symmetrical and fits as snugly as a mold. We were interested in the wardrobe and the jewels, and in the silverware, and its grace of shape and beauty and delicacy of ornamentation. The silverware is kept locked up, except at meal times, and none but the chief butler and the prince have keys to the safe. I did not clearly understand why, but it was not for the protection of the silver. It was either to protect the prince from the contamination which his caste would suffer if the vessels were touched by low-caste hands, or it was to protect his highness from poison. Possibly it was both. I believe a salaried taster has to taste everything before the prince ventures it, an ancient and judicious custom in the East, and has thinned out the tasters a good deal, for of course it is the cook that puts the poison in. If I were an Indian prince I would not go to the expense of a taster, I would eat with the cook. Ceremonials are always interesting, and I noted that the Indian good morning is a ceremonial, whereas ours doesn't amount to that. In salutation the son reverently touches the father's forehead with a small silver implement tipped with vermilion paste, which leaves a red spot there, and in return the son receives the father's blessing. Our good morning is well enough for the rowdy West, perhaps, but would be too brusque for the soft and ceremonious East. After being properly necklaced, according to custom, with great garlands made of yellow flowers, and provided with betel nut to chew, this pleasant visit closed, and we passed thence to a scene of a different sort. From this glow of color and this sunny life to those grim receptacles of the Parsee dead, the Towers of Silence. There is something stately about that name, and an impressiveness which sinks deep. The hush of death is in it. We have the grave, the tomb, the mausoleum, God's acre, the cemetery, and association has made them eloquent with solemn meaning, but we have no name that is so majestic as that one, or lingers upon the ear with such deep and haunting pathos. On lofty ground, in the midst of a paradise of tropical foliage and flowers, remote from the world and its turmoil and noise, they stood, the Towers of Silence. And away below was spread the wide groves of cocoa palms, then the city, mile on mile, then the ocean with its fleets of creeping ships, all steeped in a stillness as deep as the hush that hallowed this high place of the dead. The vultures were there. They stood close together in a great circle all around the rim of a massive low tower, waiting, stood as motionless as sculptured ornaments, and indeed almost deceived one into the belief that that was what they were. Presently there was a slight stir among the score of persons present, and all moved reverently out of the path and ceased from talking. A funeral procession entered the great gate, marching two and two, and moved silently by toward the tower. The corpse lay in a shallow shell, and was under cover of a white cloth, but was otherwise naked. The bearers of the body were separated by an interval of 30 feet from the mourners. They, and also the mourners, were draped all in pure white, and each couple of mourners was figuratively bound together by a piece of white rope or a handkerchief, though they merely held the ends of it in their hands. Behind the procession followed a dog, which was led in a leash. When the mourners had reached the neighborhood of the tower, neither they nor any other human being but the bearers of the dead must approach within 30 feet of it, they turned and went back to one of the prayer-houses within the gates, to pray for the spirit of their dead. The bearers unlocked the tower's sole door and disappeared from view within. In a little while they came out, bringing the bier and the white covering-cloth, and locked the door again. Then the ring of vultures rose, flapping their wings, and swooped down into the tower to devour the body. Nothing was left of it but a clean-picked skeleton when they flocked out again a few minutes afterward. The principle which underlies and orders everything connected with a Parsee funeral is purity. By the tenets of the Zoroastrian religion, the elements, earth, fire, and water, are sacred, and must not be contaminated by contact with a dead body. Hence corpses must not be burned, neither must they be buried. None may touch the dead or enter the towers where they repose except certain men who are officially appointed for that purpose. They receive high pay, but theirs is a dismal life, for they must live apart from their species, because their commerce with the dead defiles them, and any who should associate with them would share their defilement. When they come out of the tower, the clothes they are wearing are exchanged for others in a building within the grounds, and the ones which they have taken off are left behind, for they are contaminated, and must never be used again or suffered to go outside the grounds. These bearers come to every funeral in new garments. So far as is known, no human being other than an official corpse-bearer, save one, has ever entered a Tower of Silence after its consecration. Just 100 years ago a European rushed in behind the bearers and fed his brutal curiosity with a glimpse of the forbidden mysteries of the place. This shabby savage's name is not given. His quality is also concealed. These two details, taken in connection with the fact that for his extraordinary offense the only punishment he got from the East India Company's government was a solemn official reprimand, suggest the suspicion that he was a European of consequence. The same public document which contained the reprimand gave warning that future offenders of his sort, if in the company's service, would be dismissed, and if merchants, suffer revocation of license and exile to England. The towers are not tall, but are low in proportion to their circumference, like a gasometer. If you should fill a gasometer half way up with solid granite masonry, then drive a wide and deep well down